Yes. What all did we learn in the last class about
Autonomic nerves.
autonomic nervous system? And previously we learned about the somatic nervous system. That is again a division of peripheral nervous system. And in the first class we learned about what?
Neurons.
Neurons. Yes. Before that, the evolutionary perspective. Yes. Then we started with the nervous system and we saw the divisions of the peripheral nervous system. Now we are moving on to the central nervous system. Which are the structures in the central nervous system, Raina? The two organs in the CNS.
CNS, brain, and spinal cord.
Brain and spinal cord. Yes.
Spinal.
So, what? Can you see the screen? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The central nervous system or the CNS is the center of all neural activity. It integrates all incoming sensory information, performs all kinds of cognitive activities, and issues motor commands to muscles and glands. The CNS comprises of brain and spinal cord. We have discussed the same thing too many times. That is, it relays information, it governs the major functions, it gives commands or it gives orders to the rest of the structures and organs. So this is the structure of the brain. It is a picture from your textbook. The parts that have been labeled: the cerebrum, or also known as the cerebral cortex, pineal gland, the brain stem as total. That is, it includes the midbrain, the pons, the medulla oblongata. Then we have the cerebellum, then spinal cord that this part the lower part comes down to the spinal cord. After the brain, then the CNS continues down to the spinal cord. Then we have the pituitary gland there, hypothalamus, as well as the thalamus. We'll be learning separately about all these structures of the brain. Okay. Now, dividing the brain into three, based on the, for our convenience we divide it into three, and there are different structures present in each of these divisions. So we have hindbrain, midbrain, and forebrain. The orangish part you see, that makes up the major part of the brain, and it is the forebrain. Then the greenish one is the midbrain, which is the smallest division. Then we have the yellowish color, that forms the hindbrain. And what you have to notice in the nervous system or in the brain or in the spinal cord and whichever structure it is, we'll study about specific functions of each structure. But what you have to note is this structure along with several other structures perform this function. You cannot tell that if you have this particular structure, then you can carry out this particular behavior or particular function properly. It has some main function or main role in performing a particular function, but it has to get so much of help from the neighboring structures also. So when we learn the specific structures, we also learn specific functions. But along with these structures, there are several other structures, several other nerves, several other assisting structures that helps in the whole process. Okay, so if we are learning about sensation, the function of sensation, there are different structures in the brain that helps in the whole process of sensation. So if we are talking about only the forebrain, then a forebrain structure in the cerebral cortex, if it has a function of sensation, then you cannot tell that only the forebrain structures are responsible for sensation. Understood? It is an integration of the whole central nervous system or the whole nervous system that takes place in carrying out a particular function. Okay. So again, the three divisions are hindbrain, midbrain, and the forebrain. We'll see the hindbrain first. This part of the brain consists of the following structures. It has medulla oblongata, then pons and cerebellum. These are the structures in the hindbrain. Note that medulla oblongata, you have the spelling here, then pons and cerebellum. See about medulla oblongata. First, it is the lowest part of the brain that exists in continuation of the spinal cord. It contains neural centers which regulate basic life supporting activities like breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. This is why medulla is known as the vital center of the brain. It has some centers of autonomic activities also. So, as I told you before, we learned about autonomic nervous system, right? And in the functions, we learned about the breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. But autonomic nervous system, they are helping in relaying this information. It consists of the nerves and the neurons in the autonomic nervous system because it is a part of the peripheral nervous system. But here, in regarding the brain and the spinal cord, in the hindbrain, we have a structure called medulla oblongata, and this is a vital part or an important part or an important structure of the brain that helps in regulating the basic life supporting activities like breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. That's why I told you it is a team effort of all these structures. Okay, of all the structures of most of the structures of the nervous system, they function together in a particular rhythm or in a particular manner in order to bring about all these functions. Okay. So when I ask you which is the vital center of the brain, you have to give the name medulla oblongata, and it is present in the hindbrain. So basically, for convenience for studying the different structures of the brain, we divide the brain into the hindbrain, the midbrain, and the forebrain. And the hindbrain has three main structures, in fact, that is medulla oblongata, pons, as well as the cerebellum. So regarding medulla oblongata, it is the area of the brain which has some connections or which exists in close association with the spinal cord. From the brain, the spinal cord goes to the lower part, right? So there we have the medulla oblongata, and main function is in regulating basic life supporting activities like breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. There we have the structure here. See the green part, that is the medulla oblongata. And finally, regarding the central nervous system, the rest of the part goes down as the spinal cord. Okay, from here, there are two organs in CNS, right? The brain and the spinal cord. After the brain, the lower part is inside the backbone is the spinal cord. Okay. Now the next structure is pons in the hindbrain. It is connected with medulla on one side and with the midbrain on the other. A nucleus or neural center of pons receives auditory signals relayed by our ears. It is believed that pons is involved in sleep mechanism, particularly the sleep characterized by dreaming. It contains nuclei affecting respiratory movement and facial expressions also. So the main functions are relaying auditory signals. It helps in relaying to and fro signals. What kind of signals? Auditory signals. When our ears receive the auditory signals, then this structure called pons, it helps in relaying these signals. Then it also helps in the receival of this information. Okay. It is believed that pons is also involved in sleep mechanisms. So main functions are receiving auditory signals, then sleep mechanisms, especially sleep related to when we have the stage of dreaming. That particular sleep stage, in that stages, the main functions are done by the pons. Then we have the set of nuclei inside pons affecting respiratory movement and facial expressions also. So mainly for receiving auditory signals, then the sleep mechanism, then we have the respiratory movement and also the facial expressions. All those functions are specifically for the pons along with some other structures also. Now we have the next structure, that is cerebellum. Don't confuse cerebellum and cerebrum. We have the major part of the brain forming the cerebrum, which comes in the forebrain. But this cerebellum is a structure in the hindbrain. Okay, cerebellum. This highly developed part of the hindbrain can be easily recognized by its wrinkled surface. So cerebellum has a wrinkled surface. It maintains and controls posture and equilibrium of the body. Its main function is coordination of muscular movements. Though the motor commands originate in the forebrain, the cerebellum receives and coordinates them to relate to the muscles. It also stores the memory of movement patterns so that we do not have to concentrate on how to walk, dance, or ride a bicycle. So connect it to the bell. It has a bell in its name, right? Cerebellum. When we have the central part in the brain, yes, sorry, in the bell, and when we move it, the central part hits the surface and it makes the sound, right? Yes, that's how the sound comes. And finally, what happens is this thing goes to and fro, it hits the surface, makes the sound, and finally it comes to rest. The center part of the bell comes to rest, right? Finally. So it forms a balance. After making these sounds, the central part of the bell, it comes to rest and it maintains a balance without moving to the left or the right side. Yes? Yes or no? Yes. So connect this to the cerebellum and learn so that you don't confuse it. In the cerebellum, the main function is maintaining this balance and coordination. Okay, so if you want to ride a bicycle or if you want to walk straight on a straight line, then do you always keep on telling you put your left hand front and then keep the right hand in front? No, right? It automatically happens. So this cerebellum is responsible for that. Cerebellum helps in maintaining that balance and it coordinates the movements. And mainly we have motor cortex in the forebrain that are mainly responsible for processing the motor information. Motor information means information regarding the movements. But the cerebellum also has a role in this maintaining the balance and the appropriate motor movements of the human body. So again, it has a wrinkled surface, so it can be easily recognized. Then it maintains and controls posture and equilibrium of the body. Equilibrium means the balance of the body. Its main function is coordination of muscular movements. Though the motor commands originate in the forebrain, the cerebellum receives and coordinates them to relate to the muscles. So the cerebellum, it receives this motor information and it also helps in relaying this to the muscles. It has to send this information to the muscles in order to walk, in order to ride a bicycle, in order to dance, or in order to jump. This cerebellum has to send these messages to the the muscles, so that it can bring about movements in the human body. Okay, and yes, it also stores a memory of movement patterns so that we do not have to concentrate on how to walk, dance, or ride a bicycle. That's it. So again, hindbrain has three structures: medulla oblongata, then pons, and cerebellum. The medulla, that is the vital center of the brain, and it helps in the life supporting activities like breathing, blood pressure, heart rate, all that. Then pons, we have four main things, that is receiving sensory auditory signals, then for facial expression, for respiratory movements, then also the sleep mechanism, especially during dreaming. Then cerebellum, as the name suggests, you can connect it with the bell, maintaining the balance, the equilibrium. Then the motor coordination of movements, muscular movements, then relaying or sending information to the muscles and glands. Yes, that's about the hindbrain. And here we have the...
Ma'am,
Yes.
any damage in the cerebellum, what will it cause?
We'll lose the balance. So if we are doing a dance, we have to balance different postures, right? We have to show so many gestures. We have to stand in different positions. We have to stand in one leg, we have to stand in two legs, we have to turn to the left and right, and such movements happen. Yes, if the cerebellum is damaged, that balance will be lost and the coordination will be lost. The main function of the cerebellum is maintaining the equilibrium, a balanced posture for the body. If cerebellum is damaged or any damage to the functions or the associated structures of the cerebellum happens, then we lose this um, coordination, motor coordination or the balance or the equilibrium, and we won't be able to maintain that postures and the total coordination of the body.
So will we forget to walk?
Chances are there. But I told you we have several other structures helping in it, right? I already told you in regarding the motor movements, we have the structures in the forebrain, and mainly we have the motor cortex that is involved in receiving this particular motor information and coordinating the motor movements. Mainly, that is the head, but cerebellum also has this function. Okay, and cerebellum mainly is for the maintaining equilibrium and balance. Understood. Motor movements might be we'll be able to walk, but maybe we won't be able to balance much. We would go left and right, and maybe we'll confuse ourselves with the ways. Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
ma'am.
So this is the pons, and probably the area after coming after the pons would be the medulla oblongata. And yes, this structure here, the wrinkle structure, I told you it has a wrinkled surface. This is the cerebellum, and in most of the pictures, if you Google, you can see it has a cauliflower or broccoli like structure. Okay, and in this picture, in this yellowish picture, you can see this cauliflower-like structure, right? That is the cerebellum. Okay, yes, that's all about the hindbrain. Now we have the midbrain. So did you see the structure? Midbrain, hindbrain is over, the yellowish thing is over. Then we have the midbrain. That is a small part. However, it has so many functions. Yes, midbrain is relatively small in size and connects the hindbrain with the forebrain. A few neural centers related to some special reflexes and visual and auditory sensations are found here. An important part of midbrain known as reticular activating system, note that name, reticular activating system, or known as the RAS, is responsible for our arousal. It makes us alert and active by regulating sensory inputs. It also helps us in selecting information from the environment. So basically this reticular activating system of the midbrain is the most important structure that or most important set of structures that we have to learn. Set of structures means that is why it is mentioned as a system. So reticular activating system or the RAS, it is responsible for maintaining our arousal state. For making us alert about things, for making us conscious about particular stimuli. Suppose yeah, when you're sleeping, you're startled by a noise. So that would be governed by the reticular activating system. And I'll give another example. Consider a cab driver. Hmm? Did I lose connection? I can't see anybody. Okay. Yes. Consider a cab driver, and he hasn't been sleeping for the last night. So he started sleeping at probably 6 in the morning. And he has parked his car near to a parking lot which is in the middle of the city, and there is so much of noises from the traffic and the people moving in and around, but he is sleeping peacefully there inside the car. He's hearing lots of noises, but he is able to sleep somehow. Okay, he's peacefully sleeping inside his car, even though there is so much of commotion and so much of noise around him. And finally, he had put an alarm to go for the next ride, to go for his job. And it rings and he wakes up. So he has been hearing so much of horns from the vehicles, so much of commotion from the people, so much of noises from the construction sites, but he didn't wake up during his sleep. But the alarm made him awake. So those functions, the prioritizing what to listen to or what to be conscious of, things make us alert, more aroused. Those things are decided by the reticular activating system. Understood? Yes. Okay. So reticular activating system, again, it is responsible for our arousal. It makes us alert and active by regulating sensory inputs. It also helps us in selecting information from the environment. So the driver here, he was able to select only the alarm's sound. Okay, the other noises didn't bother him. His body, what the body shows is to listen or to be alert only towards this particular alarm sound, because that is important for him, right? He has to go for his job after waking up at this particular time. So prioritizing the sensory information or what to listen to, what to attend to, all these things are dealt with by the reticular activating system. That is the main thing that you have to learn about the midbrain. From the midbrain, we have the RAS to learn about. And yes, that's about the midbrain. And here the RAS filters and prioritizes sensory information to let the mind be focused and alert. So if you are writing an examination, you will be so much involved in your writing process, right? And even if you hear some teachers talking, you might not listen to them. You will just try to focus and finish writing your exam. But suddenly, if another teacher comes and tells you that only 5 minutes are left for you to complete, then you will certainly listen to that, right? You'll certainly get alert about it. Yes, even if the other teachers have been speaking throughout or the other invigilators have been speaking, you might not listen sometimes. But this thing, the 5 minutes left, the message that given by that invigilator that only 5 minutes are remaining for you to complete, that is important for you. So you might listen or you might get alert by that particular message. So these things are mainly due to the functions of the reticular activating system. Understood? Okay, so we already saw hindbrain, the three structures, medulla. Which are the three structures? You can tell me. Yes, Aishwarya.
Medulla oblongata, pons, and cerebellum.
Cerebellum, okay. Then the next one, who would tell me? Ashish. In midbrain, what did we learn? Just now. What system?
Reticular
Reticular
activating system.
activating
System.
system. Okay. Now we'll move on to the major part or the major division,
Reticular
the
activating system.
forebrain. Yes, Ashish. Okay. Forebrain, yes. It is considered to be the most important part of the brain because it performs all cognitive, emotional, and motor activities. We will discuss four major parts of the forebrain, that is hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, and cerebrum. Note the structures or the main parts: hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, and cerebrum. Hypothalamus, thalamus, limbic system, and the cerebrum. Grishma and Ashish, I can't see your video. Elvina also, Reina. Okay. The forebrain, the first structure that we are going to learn is hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is one of the smallest structures in the brain. I'll show the picture. Yes, this is the hypothalamus. But it plays a vital role in our behavior. Even though it is a very small structure, it has a very, very important role in so many functions of the brain. It regulates physiological processes involved in emotional and motivational behavior such as eating, drinking, sleeping, temperature regulation, and sexual arousal. So it also regulates and controls the internal environment of the body, also regulates the secretion of hormones from various endocrine glands. So when you sit for studying, you might get hungry, right? Sometimes or most of the times. So if you're or you may feel sleepy also, again most of the times. Yes, yes, Reina, do you feel sleepy when you sit for studying? No, no, yes, no, or yeah, yeah, of course. Oh, yeah. So what happens is, next time when you feel sleepy and your mom comes into your room and she finds you with the book on your face and you peacefully sleeping on the bed, then tell her, Mom, it's not because of me, it is because of my hypothalamus. Okay? Because hypothalamus, that is the structure in the forebrain which is responsible for regulating these activities like eating, I mean these functions, hunger, thirst, the sleep patterns, the maintaining the temperature of the body, then drinking, yeah, all those things. So basically it is involved in the emotional and motivational behaviors. So when we study, we'll be motivated to eat, we'll be motivated to sleep, right? And it gives us some form of pleasure from escaping from the studies. And so these behaviors are dealt with by the hypothalamus. It also regulates and controls the internal environment of the body. Again, heart rate, blood pressure, temperature. This hypothalamus also has a role in this. Then also regulates the secretion of hormones from various endocrine glands. We'll be studying about the endocrine glands in this chapter itself. They are the ductless glands that produce hormones. So in the secretion of these hormones also, hypothalamus has a very major role. Hypothalamus is one of the head of that endocrine department. And only if the hypothalamus signs the file, the endocrine glands can really produce the hormones. Understood? That is the main roles of the hypothalamus. You already saw the picture. Now the next structure is the thalamus. Thalamus, it consists of an egg-shaped cluster of neurons situated on the ventral or the upper side of the hypothalamus. It is like a relay station that receives in all incoming sensory signals from sense organs and sends them to appropriate parts of the cortex for processing. It also receives all outgoing motor signals coming from the cortex and sends them to the appropriate parts of the body. So earlier we saw hypothalamus. Here we have thalamus. Thalamus is an egg-shaped structure. It is a cluster of neurons, the thalamus. And hypothalamus means, hypo means down, or the lower part. So below the thalamus, we have the hypothalamus. Hypothalamus means below the thalamus. So we have the egg-shaped structure called the thalamus, and below that we have the hypothalamus. Understood? And thalamus is like just like a post office. What it does is, it is like a relay station that receives all incoming sensory signals from sense organs and sends them to appropriate parts of the cortex for processing. I already told you the cortex, the cerebral cortex or the forebrain has the major structures for processing information. So when I'm telling you to consider thalamus like a post office, and here it receives all the letters, that is all the sensory signals first, and then it sends single postmen to different areas for sending this to different addresses. And the addresses that will form the different areas of our cortex. Okay. And finally, the person who receives the message would process it. They would read it and understand the letter, right? Just like that, the post office is a thalamus. So it receives all the incoming sensory signals. we compare it with the letters. And then what they do is they sort it out and send to different areas in the cortical areas. Okay, there it is processed. The sensory information is processed, and also it also receives all outgoing motor signals coming from the cortex and sends them to appropriate parts of the body. So when it reaches the cortex areas, it also receives the information from there, and then it gives to the rest of the parts of the body. Okay, it has a relaying function to and fro. Okay, that is about thalamus. So this is the structure. Here we have the egg-shaped structure, that is the red-colored structure or the orangish colored structure, that is the thalamus. And below the thalamus, we have the hypothalamus, the yellowish color. Yes, clear the structure? Yes. Now we have the limbic system. The limbic system, this system is composed of a group of structures that helps in maintaining internal homeostasis by regulating body temperature, blood pressure, and blood sugar level. Homeostasis means maintaining a balanced state of everything. Like when you go to a very cold place, your body shivers, right? And that helps you in bringing the body temperature back to a normal balanced state. So that is one of the function of this one. It has close links with the hypothalamus. Besides hypothalamus, the limbic system comprises of hippocampus and amygdala. The hippocampus plays an important role in long-term memory. The amygdala plays an important role in emotional behavior. So regarding emotions, this amygdala is responsible. And regarding the long-term memory, if you want to convert the short-term, something in your short-term memory to long-term memory, if you want to remember that particular thing for a very long period of time, then hippocampus helps in that. Okay, so in the limbic system, we have two main structures, that is hippocampus and amygdala, but hypothalamus also has roles in limbic system. And I'll show you the picture and finish. Yes. Yeah, here we have the amygdala, the small almond shape. It is supposed to be an almond shaped structure. And the other one, the blue colored structure, is the hippocampus, and it got its name because it's similar to a seahorse. Okay, the scientific name of seahorse is something related to the hippocampus. So that's why the structure is called the hippocampus. That's all. And next structure is cerebrum. We have a lot to learn in that. We'll learn that in the next class. This is the major portion, the cerebrum. Understood? Yes? Okay, then we'll see in the evening.